Colorado Young Democrats CD1 debate.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Colorado Young Democrats, and thank you to this crowd for coming out on a lovely Saturday afternoon. Great to see you, Representative DeGette. I would be happy to meet you here every week until June if you're game. I'm Saira Rao, and I'm the daughter of Indian immigrants, a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, and me and my family moved to Denver 5 years ago when my mother suddenly died. This community has healed me, and I am forever grateful. Now, this community is sick, and I want to give back. What that means is we have to get corporate money out of politics and give everyone, people, a seat at the table. The status quo hasn't worked. The status quo gave us Donald Trump. And here we are, standing on a cliff, looking out at a sea of fascism, and the status quo is not going to save us. We keep electing the same people over and over again, and we have the greatest income inequality we've had since the 1920s. People are being strangled by their student loan debt. They were sold the American dream and got the American nightmare. Black and brown people are killed on our streets every single day. The list goes on and on, and these are not just local issues. But if we're going to talk about local, I want to talk about my friend Vanessa. Vanessa knows a thing or two about poverty. As a kid, Vanessa had more access to drugs than she did books. By the time she was in the 12th grade, she'd been to 10 different schools, experienced 2 school closures, dropped out twice, and despite the odds, she is sitting here today, the proud graduate of high school, college, and about to be graduate school, UC Berkeley. Vanessa gives me hope. So do all the other fighters in CD1. I have hope. I've talked to so many of you, and this is what I hear from you. You want, and I will fight for, single-payer health care, Clean Dream Act, comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship, more funding for our public schools and school teachers, and all things Black Lives Matter. Americans have lost faith in their government, and I promise you I will bring it back. I will wake up and work for you and fight for you every single day. This election is not just about red to blue, it's about blue to true blue. Thank you very much.
I too want to thank the Colorado Young Democrats for hosting this debate today. I want to thank all the wonderful audience who came out today. I want to thank the Pipefitters who are hosting us in their home. I thank for visiting them. I want to thank the Colorado AFL-CIO for their endorsement, because the support of working people all across this district means a lot to me. I'm so honored to have represented this congressional district, and I'm so honored to ask you for your support in my re-election campaign. This election, you know, we're mad. We're all mad. And we're mad with good reason. Donald Trump is our president. Do I need to say any more than that? No. But in this congressional district, what the issue really is who's going to show the leadership that we need to, taking us in to the majority, which we are going to win in November of this year. And strongly as she does, about issues like taking corporate money out of politics, about single-payer health care. I've been fighting so hard for a comprehensive immigration reform bill with a path to citizenship for all of our dreamers, plus all of their families who have worked so hard to achieve the American dream. But the real difference in this race is who's going to walk in January when the Democrats are in the majority and be able to fight for you in a leadership position. Let me just tell you why. As Chief Deputy Whip for the Democrats, when we're in the leadership, I'm going to be able to put the coalition together to pass comprehensive immigration reform, just like I did to pass health care when we passed the Affordable Care Act. As the co-chair with Congresswoman Barbara Lee of the Pro-Choice Caucus from California, I'm going to be poised not just to fund Planned Parenthood at a higher level, but to make sure that we repeal the Hyde Amendment, which disproportionately affects poor women and women of color in this country. And when I'm the chair of the Oversight Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce, guess what? I'm going to have subpoena power. And guess what? I'm going to subpoena Scott Pruitt. And then what? I'm going to put Scott Pruitt under oath. Okay? So that's really the choice you have to make. I'm looking forward to answering all of your questions today, but most importantly, I'm looking forward to working hand in hand with everybody in this room to take a Democratic majority in November. Thank you so much.
We are going to move into our questions now. So these are all questions on domestic policy issues. So we will be starting with Diana, and then we will hear from Saira, and then Diana, you will have a chance for a 30-second rebuttal if you'd like, just so we got that clear. We're good. Okay, first question. Young people today are carrying more debt due to student loans and also face effectively stagnant wages while cost of living continues to rise. Do you support free college education, debt reduction, forgiveness programs, or any other policies that would be aimed at addressing this issue?
Student loan debt is one of the key issues that we have in the 1st Congressional District. So many people are moving into the district and they can't afford to buy a house because they're paying their student loans. And so there are several different things that we need to do at the federal level to make student loans more affordable. Number one, I'm co-sponsoring the House Companion to Senator Elizabeth Warren's bill, Bank on Student Loan and Refinance Act, to let people refinance their loans and consolidate them at a lower level. Also, I support increased Pell Grants and Pell Grant availability. But I think the thing that's going to really help folks in this district is loan forgiveness for people who go into public service. This means our teachers, it means our firefighters, our police officers, our librarians, so many people who need to have this loan forgiveness. And finally, I'm a co-sponsor of the efforts to expand Perkins loans for people who are going into technical education. I must say that student loan forgiveness and grants is one of the top priorities of the Democrats in Congress. And in my leadership role as Chief Deputy Whip, I'm going to be able to help pass these pieces of legislation immediately when we take the majority. Thank you.
44 million Americans are sitting on $1.4 trillion in student loan debt. That means 2 generations of people who can't buy houses, can't start families, and can't save for retirement. The average price of a single-family home here is over $500,000. Rent has gone up nearly 50% since 2010. That's crazy. We have a radical income inequality problem and affordable housing problem and all the other stuff. So for radical problems, we need radical solutions. So this is what I'm proposing. Elimination of student loan debt. We just gave corporations a $1.4 trillion tax cut. We have money, our priorities are out of whack. We have to focus on and support vocational and trade schools. And I would advocate and push for free public colleges and universities. We sold the American dream, which was based on predatory lending, and tons of folks are living the American nightmare. I was told by a millennial recently, who's sitting in the crowd actually, that millennials are just trying to get by. They're trying to survive. There's no more American dream. And these are folks who did everything right. So we gotta stop. Why do we keep giving tax cuts to companies and letting our young people pay the price for that? Enough! So yes, I would be totally pro elimination of student loan debt, and that'd be the first bill that I would carry. let's do a rebuttal.
But the only thing I'll add is that tax cut was a disgrace, and not one Democrat voted for it for good reason.
Saira, we're going to start with you this time. The American middle class is rapidly shrinking. What specifically can Congress do to create a living wage and high-paying jobs and protect the middle class for Americans of all ages? What are your thoughts on universal income?
I'm pro-universal income, so that would be one thing that we could do. We are experiencing a 99.1% situation in this country. That is technically third world, okay? I grew up going to India, getting off the airplane and seeing abject poverty and then penthouses, experiencing, oh my God, there's no clean drinking water. We're in year number 4 here, and Flint still doesn't have clean water to drink. We have a humanitarian crisis in Puerto Rico. Union-busting corporations have decimated the middle class and put tons of people in poverty. We have major, major problems. So this is what I would say. We got to increase the federal minimum wage, period. Jobs guarantee. This is something Bernie Sanders has recently floated, and I've been reading about it, and I think it's a great idea. Ro Khanna is about to propose a bill on a jobs guarantee. I would 100% support that. Universal basic income. Absolutely. We have to start taking care of people in this district and in this country. We are heading down, and I don't want to even say heading down, we are down that road. So when we are in the 99.1% situation, this is a potential disaster. Flint is just the beginning. We're going to see cities all over the country not have clean drinking water. People in this district are starving. Kids are going to school hungry. So I'm coming back to this. This is a radical problem, and we need radical solutions.
Working class families across the country are really suffering. And Ms. Rao is right. That tax cut that the Republicans passed only increases the gap between the top 1% and the corporations in this country and everybody else. And that's why the first thing we need to do is repeal that tax cut and get tax increase. Beyond that, though, there's a lot more that we can do that will help working families in this country. And number one, we need to pass a bill that I'm co-sponsoring, the Raise the Wage Act, which is the bill to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. But that's just the core. We also need to extend child tax credits to working families all across this country. We need to adjust them for inflation and make sure that every working family can get the tax credits they need to have their kids have child care. Also, we need to have mandatory family leave in this country. And I'm co-sponsoring legislation to have 12 weeks of family leave for parental leave or serious health conditions, which would help the working families in this country. I'm also co-sponsoring the Social Security 2100 Act, which will increase Social Security benefits, and it'll tie the increases to real cost of living. And last but not least, I'm co-sponsoring Representative Robin Kelly's Urban Progress Act. What this does is it sustains communities' economies. What it does is it gives work opportunity tax credits for small businesses, and it encourages companies to invest in communities like our community right here. These are all things we can do, and when we take the majority, I'm going to make it one of my top priorities to make sure we pass this Families First agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing up the Family Leave Act. So I had the privilege of getting maternity leave when I had my 2 kids. And every single person in America, we should have Family Leave Act. We've had folks in Congress, though, for decades, and we don't have a Family Leave Act. And I don't know why that is.
It doesn't help when the Republicans are in control.
The next question is actually going to be asked by one of our board members and a Jeffco Young Democrat, who part of Jeffco is in CD1. So we're encouraging some of our local chapters to ask questions as well. So, Jordan.
As Saira mentioned, the water crisis. Without clean water for over 3 years. Many parts of Puerto Rico are still without power and water. Roads and bridges are crumbling throughout the country. What should Congress do to address these issues?
Well, first, you're exactly right. I went to Puerto Rico around Christmas time, and I actually saw the lack of electricity that we have. Still, to this day, 15,000 homes don't have electricity in Puerto Rico. We need to restore that grid, not just to where it was before, but to a new standard where it can withstand increasing weather, extreme weather events. In Flint and so many other places, the Democrats forced the Republicans to put money for the Flint water remediation into the budget, but that's not enough. We have crumbling infrastructure all around this country. And if you'll recall, when Trump was elected president, he said he was going to work with the Democrats for infrastructure. Instead, they did that terrible tax cut targeted at the wealthy and the corporations. So the first thing we have to do is we have to have a real infrastructure plan that's going to help our communities. Right here at home, we have issues with lead in our Denver water. Yesterday, I convened all of the different parties, Denver Water, the State Health Department, the EPA, and Aurora, and a bunch of other cities at a table to talk about how we're going to make sure that there's no lead in our water and that our water is safe for everybody to drink. You know what the stakeholders told me when they came yesterday? That was the first time they had ever met together at one table. And that's the bully pulpit of the 1st Congressional District Representative. I can haul those people in and I can tell them we need to have safe water and we need to have safe water now for our kids. And they listen to me and they're gonna work it out instead of going through a long court battle.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about Flint and Puerto Rico. Most of the people affected by the Flint water crisis are black, and just about everyone in Puerto Rico is brown. So there's a 12-year-old kid here in Denver who's actually kind of solved the Flint water crisis. Her name is DeGette Rao. Basically, she was like, where are the adults in the room? I'm gonna hop in here and take care of that. But so it's a debacle. Flint is a debacle. And with Puerto Rico, we gotta give them statehood and the right to vote. They're disenfranchised. In terms of infrastructure, we have modern infrastructure problems that we are treating with 1950s style solutions. So let's use I-70 as an example. The I-70 expansion is a nightmare for a whole host of reasons. Number one, we are displacing communities of color. We are dealing with communities that have the worst air quality already in the country and making it worse. We are cutting down our green space, destroying parks, all for what? To expand roads. Guess what? Expanding roads doesn't eliminate traffic, it makes it worse. We have to start moving people and not cars and start investing in public transportation.
I agree. We need to really promote public transportation in this district. That's why I was able to obtain $50 million for Denver Union Station to make it into the multimodal hub that it is today. And that's why I was able to help push the agreement, the full funding agreement through Congress that is giving us now the build out of the light rail that we have right now.
Yes. The next question is going to be asked by Emily Sheridan, representing the Denver Young Democrats.
I know that our goal is for Democrats to retake the House. But if we don't, how will you work with Republican-controlled majority and the Trump administration?
We are definitely going to retake the House. Look, I think all of this is about coalition building. And I think we've really devolved in this country to a place of sort of partisan drama. And people are tweeting at each other and soapboxing at each other and yelling at each other, and none of that's working. So what I would say is building coalitions. I would immediately join the Progressive Caucus, of which is buoyant and growing. One of my friends, true story, I know it's gonna be hard to believe, one of my best friends is a Republican member of the House of Representatives, and I talk to him frequently, and he says, you know, we actually do reach across the aisle and talk to each other. We actually do that. It seems like, it doesn't seem like that in the press, but we do that. So I know that I will have no problem doing that. I think ultimately though, with Donald Trump, it feels like the Democrats in Congress have kind of just rolled over and played dead.
Yeah.
Where are the loud voices? Where are the leaders? Who is standing up for us and protecting us? One thing I will say is, as your representative, I will actually show up for votes. And so, as it were, in the House of Representatives, out of 435 reps, 385 show up for votes more frequently than Representative DeGette. Representative DeGette has...
That's not true.
Well, okay. The poorest attendance among the Colorado Congressional delegation. Representative DeGette has taken 47 trips outside of Colorado since 2012. I think in order to fight Donald Trump, you actually have to be in Washington to fight Donald Trump.
First of all, let me just say, with respect to bipartisanship, some of you know that I have been in the minority most of my time in Congress, but nonetheless, I've been able to pass important legislation to benefit the lives of my constituents and all Americans. I was able to pass the stem cell legislation to give hope to Americans, not just once, but twice, under a Republican administration. 2 years ago, I was able to pass 21st Century Cures, a large bipartisan bill which restructures the way we do biomedical research in this country and gives a path to cures for research at the NIH and then drug and device approval at the FDA. And so that's why I think I won several awards for bipartisanship this year. Ms. Rao is right. We're going to win the majority, but don't think it's going to be so easy when we win the majority. We're still going to have to pass bills. We're still going to have to put coalitions together to pass them with Democrats and Republicans, and that's what I can do for you. Now, with respect to these other allegations, I heard about these yesterday, and they're not true. I did miss some votes last year, but I missed just very few votes until I missed 1 week of votes. And you know why I missed those votes? It was my daughter's wedding. And I will tell you that in any job, but especially in the United States Congress or in politics, you have to put your family first. Right. And if I have to miss a week of votes for my daughter, I'll talk about foreign travel later, but I just want to leave you with one thought. With Donald Trump as president, I suggest that the members of Congress should fan out across the world to let the foreign leaders know that we're still sane as a country.
Obviously agree, family always comes first, but I do want to say since Donald Trump was elected, Representative DeGette has missed 17 committee hearings involving opioids, public health, the environment. Nobody loves medical research more than me. It could have saved my mom's life. But Elizabeth Warren did call Cures Act extortion and a big giveaway to Big Pharma. And Representative DeGette does take a ton of money from Big Pharma.
Next question. This is our final question in the domestic policy section. We have a lot of returning veterans, especially younger ones now coming out of the Iraq wars and other military operations. They are often left out of discussions about housing, jobs, and other issues here in our country, especially women vets. There's currently federal legislation about creating a Women's Veterans Commission, and in Colorado we had a bill to do a state women's veterans office here in Colorado. Do you support both of those policies, and what will you do to support more women veterans here in the United States?
Well, let me say I do support the federal legislation. I'm not in the state legislature, so I don't know what that bill looks like, but it sounds like a good idea to me. I've been working on issues of women who are veterans really since we started having a lot of veterans from the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars. And we've done a number of things to increase women's research. I've worked with my colleagues on the Defense Committee and also the Veterans Affairs Committee. At the new Veterans Hospital that's getting ready to open in Aurora, we worked hard to make sure that we had a robust wing for women's health care out there, and we will have robust services for our women veterans. We can't forget the service that these brave men and women have given to our country, and we need to make sure that we support them in every way we can. That means quality health care services, at the Veterans Hospital here. It means healthcare services if they can't get it through the Veterans Hospital here with private providers. But it also means supporting them through their veterans benefits. And this is something that the Trump administration has tried to cut, that we have held steadfast as a Democratic caucus, and we have prevailed in every single budget, and we're not going to stop till we get that done.
We are picking fights all around the world and sending Americans into these very dangerous zones, and when our vets come back, we are not treating them very well. Veterans are committing suicide at a higher rate, or becoming homeless at a higher rate. And my mom was a doctor for 34 years at the Veterans Administration. I have the utmost respect for what the people do at the Veterans Administration and the veterans themselves. So we have to do as much as possible to serve our vets and honor our vets, and we haven't done that. So I would absolutely support that. I also want to say there's been talk about privatizing VA hospitals, and that is crazy. We've got to just give public funding to the VA hospital and support our vets as much as we can. This leads me to talk about mental health and mental health services. We got to make sure when our vets come back, we are providing adequate mental health services.
Thank you. I'm going to take this 30 seconds to talk about opioids and this allegation that I missed opioid hearings. My opponent probably doesn't realize that oftentimes in Congress they have several subcommittee hearings at one time. And for those opioid hearings that they had, frequently I was also in the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, which, as I mentioned to you, I'm the ranking member, so I have to be there. We were investigating the distribution of pills into West Virginia, and we were grilling the executives of the pill distributors about why they sent millions of pills into those tiny little cities in West Virginia. That's where I was.
Thank you. We're now going to move into foreign policy. So, first question. Many other nations, including some that the U.S. consider allies, do not offer basic rights to women, members of the LGBTQ community, minority groups, and others. Do you feel the U.S. has the obligation to advocate for human rights in other countries, or do factors like trade sometimes outweigh those concerns? And we will be starting with Saira.
I want to start by saying that I think the United States should be advocating for human rights at home. And of course, abroad as well. So yeah, I mean, first of all, we do need to rethink all of the trade agreements that we have floating around. A lot of the trade agreements that we have out there have been terrible for American workers and American companies. So there's that. We've got a situation with China where they want to have trade agreements where they get our intellectual property and we don't get anything in return. So I want to put that out there. But absolutely, again, having parents from India, I know what factories in India have looked like. And I don't think we should ever, ever, ever have trade agreements with countries that employ child labor, that have sweatshops, that we know violate human rights.
I agree. When we do trade agreements with foreign countries, we need to make sure that issues like LGBTQ equality are included, that workers' rights are included, that the highest levels of environmental protection are included. And that's why I look at every single trade agreement to see if it meets those standards. And frankly, I never vote for fast-track authority. I don't care if the president is Donald Trump or who it is. But when Congress gives authority to the president to negotiate those things, then it is abrogating its constitutional duty to examine those trade agreements and make sure that all of the human rights protections, environmental rights protections, and women's protections that we need in there are in there. But I want to talk about one more issue that is an international issue, and that is international family planning and the gag rule. As co-chair of the pro-choice caucus, I've led the fight to stop the Trump administration, to stop the Bush administration from taking away the ability of our aid organizations and international aid organizations from helping women around the world plan their families. Because, if you want to have human human rights, and if you want to have dignity, then you have to give women all across the world the ability to control women and their families. And now, the Trump administration is trying to do that right here at home. Last week, they proposed some regulations that would stop organizations here from giving women access to family planning. I am asking every single person in this room to join with me to make this known, because I think when Americans find out that they're not just trying to stop abortion, they're trying to stop women and families from getting birth control, Americans are going to be outraged about that.
Trump just pulled the United States out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran deal. Mr. Trump's new plan includes adding harsher sanctions to force Iran to renegotiate. What do you feel the administration should be doing, and what would you do as a member of Congress?
Well, number one, Trump should not have pulled out of this deal. I feel quite strongly that we should have this deal. It's the best option that we have, working with our colleagues in the countries around the world to make sure that Iran divests itself of nuclear weapons capabilities, and also that it develops a more open democratic government. And I think that those efforts have worked so far. Could we beef up some of our monitoring? Yes. Could we beef up some of the provisions? Yes. But to act unilaterally like that, it was political, and it was global malpractice. And I'll tell you what Congress should be doing right now is what we are doing, at least the Democrats. We are fighting to get Congress to reaffirm that deal. Because, you know, it wasn't a perfect deal, but it was a lot better than the alternative. And I've got to say, now, obviously the Trump administration doesn't think past whatever the current news cycle is, because what are they going to do now about our European allies who are actually working to comply with that agreement? This man has gone all around the world tromping on international human rights and dignity, and now he's really putting America even more out there. That's why it's even more important that we all work with our allies around the world, including members of Congress, to let them know we have 3 equal branches of government, and Congress is the first article of our Constitution.
I had the distinct honor yesterday of speaking with Secretary Madeleine Albright, and she said, "The world is a mess, Saira, the world is a mess." That's an understatement. Absolute disaster pulling out of this nuclear deal. Pulling out of it without any sort of strategy around what are we going to do next.
Right.
When French President Macron was here a few weeks ago, he said, if this happens, we will have full-blown war. Guess where this is going? Just this morning, folks in Iran were saying, this is why you can't trust the West. So further to what Representative DeGette was saying, our allies, right? We've essentially thrown our allies under the bus. England, France, and Germany. Totally destabilized the area with no plan whatsoever. So yeah, in terms of Congress, the executive branch, unfortunately, right now has power over foreign policy, but Congress has a duty, an Article 1 duty under the Constitution, to provide oversight and accountability. I really think we got to step up our game. Congress has got to step up their game and provide oversight and accountability. Be the loudest voices in that room.
Let me just add on to that, because Ms. Rao is exactly right. When the Democrats take the majority, and we have the gavels in January, Adam Schiff is going to have the gavel as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. And Eliot Engel is going to have the gavel as the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. I'm going to have the gavel as the chairman of the Oversight and Investigations Subcommittee. I'm bringing the pharma guys in, I'm bringing Scott Pruitt in, and that's what we're going to be able to do, is have that oversight when we have the majority.
Okay, next question. South Korea and North Korea recently had a historic meeting. Do you feel Mr. Trump deserves the credit he claims for the new developments with these countries? What do you think the U.S. involvement should be as the Korean Peninsula reshapes their future? And we are starting with Saira.
Does Donald Trump deserve credit? No. All right, next question. Just kidding.
We stipulate.
Yeah, totally. All right, this is what we know about North Korea. We know that they've spent a ton of time and resources building up their nuclear arsenal. What we don't know is what they have and how much they have. We also know they've been dying for a meeting with the sitting American president. Guess what Donald Trump just gave up without anything in return? He's going to meet with Kim Jong-un on my birthday, June 12th. Happy birthday, horror movie, in Singapore. So whatever kind of a deal these two concoct, we can kind of assume it's probably a hollow deal. And that really, really scares me. I do think that we have to be talking about diplomacy first. And so, I'm glad that we got the 3 Americans back. That's amazing. But this scares me a lot because we cannot trust Donald Trump. We cannot trust Kim Jong-un. And we know that they have some pretty scary weapons over there. So yeah, no, I don't trust Donald Trump at all. So the answer is no.
Again, we can stipulate that Donald Trump has really nothing to do with this, and heaven only knows what will happen at this meeting. But I want to talk more broadly about politics in this region, because the efforts of North Korea to get a nuclear weapon that could have length even to the United States is a frightening prospect. And I do think that we need to use diplomacy, but we also need to work very closely with our allies in the region. And one of the places I actually, and I didn't miss any votes to go there. I went there on my own time. I was in Japan in February of this year. And it was right at the time when Kim Jong-un was talking about bombing both Japan and then also sending these intercontinental ballistic missiles to all the way to the United States. I was able to meet with Prime Minister Abe and the senior members of the Japanese administration. I was also able to meet over the spring with some of our South Korean allies and our colleagues there. So it's really important for us as a country to let Japan, South Korea, and the other countries in that region know that we are still their strong allies, that we are going to honor our joint defense agreements with them, and we are going to be there, not just when North Korea tries to destabilize that area, but also when China tries to go in and create trade routes through the Senkaku Islands and the other areas. We need to let Japan know they are our democratic ally in that part of the world, and we stand with them and we stand for democracy in that area. That's really important that we continue to keep those diplomatic avenues open all the time.
Pulling out, of the Iran deal, by pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, we are essentially alienating our allies and becoming more and more isolationist, and that is terrifying, and we've got to put a stop to that.
Right. Many people feel Mr. Trump has seriously damaged America's standing abroad. Besides replacing him with a Democrat in 2020, what more can federal electeds do to retain our standing in the world?
Well, one of the things that I have been fixated on for many, many years is this authorization for use of military force. Some of you might remember this. Congress passed this in 2002 after 9/11 and for the Iraq War. At that time and now, I thought that was one of the worst pieces of legislation that the U.S. Congress could pass. And the reason is, it was an open-ended ability for the president to be able to go into war virtually anywhere in the world for any length of time. And I voted against it then, and I worked very hard to get my colleagues to vote against it. Now, I have recently signed a bipartisan letter led by my friend Barbara Lee from Oakland, California, and also Congressman Cole, a Republican, urging Speaker Ryan to start a new debate on a new joint defense agreement, because we've got to be able to, Congress has to be able to have the sole control, as the Constitution gave us, to declare war. And that'll help. That'll help whether the president is Donald Trump or when it's a Democrat. And then the other thing I'll just say is what I've been saying all afternoon here, which is members of Congress have to have dialogue with their colleagues around the world. I just met with a delegation of Swedish diplomats the other day, talking to them about what we can do about climate change regulations and how the United States can continue to, fueled by states like Colorado and California and others, how we can continue to work towards resolving climate change while we wait to get back into the Paris Peace Accord. So there's a lot we can do, but it's not just Trump, it's all of us that need to do it together.
Yeah, I want to talk about Russia and what happened in November 2016 and tech. And, you know, as a normal American citizen, even I knew that Russia was influencing elections around the world and buying and selling elections. And it was very disconcerting to me that it came as a complete shock to Congress that this actually happened here in 2016. And, you know, we had an opportunity with Mark Zuckerberg on the Hill. How many people in here watched the congressional hearings? Well, yeah, obviously. You know, I just recently met with a bunch of women in tech, and their question literally was, does Congress even know what tech is? And has Congress ever even used Facebook? And in terms of the international stage, that's really embarrassing. Those hearings were blasted all around the world. And what that says to me is, we had a shot. Americans had a shot of getting some answers about where their data is going and who is protecting their privacy. And it was used by folks in Congress saying, Mark Zuckerberg, how does Facebook make money? And he just looked surprised and said, advertising? And that scares me as an American citizen, that this is our last line of defense, and it seemed to go nowhere. Also, I'm sure you guys all read, AT&T just did a pay-to-play with Michael Cohen, totally embarrassing. They got busted $600,000. I'm sure it was out of the kindness of his heart, the president of AT&T said it was a big mistake. Representative DeGette, you have taken quite a bit of money from AT&T. Would you say that that was a big mistake?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think it was a stupid thing for AT&T and Cohen to make that deal. Let me say, you know, the question that was asked was a question about international relations, but I'm happy to talk about Facebook, and I'm also happy to talk about campaign contributions, since my opponent seems to be eager to talk about those things. If you don't think that, you're right, the Senate knows nothing about the way Facebook works. Take a look at the hearing in my subcommittee. In particular, take a look at my questioning of Mark Zuckerberg on YouTube. Let me just talk about campaign contributions. Now, the AT&T is a good example because, you know, under the current election system, I'm not personally wealthy enough to be able to fund my own campaign. I have to comply with the laws that we have right now. But anybody who thinks that a campaign donation that I might take influences a vote is sorely mistaken. And AT&T is a good example because I've been one of the biggest advocates in Congress for net neutrality. When President Obama was president and the FCC was controlled by Democrats, we passed a net neutrality regulation, and I strongly supported it. And now President Trump is trying to reverse that. We think, yeah, but he reversed it, but we think we can disapprove of that. The Senate is within one vote of being able to disapprove of that regulation, and I'm leading the effort in the House, along with Congressman Mike Doyle, the ranking Democrat on the Telecom Subcommittee, to restore net neutrality. That is critical. If the reasoning is that there's no way that the corporation can affect my vote, that is essentially Justice Kennedy's majority opinion in Citizens United.
The U.S. has routinely involved itself in foreign countries' elections. Russia was heavily involved in the 2016 U.S. elections. When do you feel like the CIA and other aspects of the American government should be involved in other countries' elections?
I don't think the CIA should ever be involved in other countries' elections, period, end of question. Now, let me just say, though, that I have a number of friends who work for for organizations that help with democracy building all around the world. And they go to these countries supported by USAID and other federal dollars to help foreign countries develop institutions and to have fair and impartial elections. And also, we have a lot of programs through Congress in cooperation with our international allies to observe foreign elections to make sure there are no irregularities. I think that that is a very important role that the United States plays in legitimately spreading democracy around the world. Having said that, what Russia did was illegal and it was unacceptable. And one thing I asked Facebook, I asked Sheryl Sandberg this and Mark Zuckerberg, it's all well and good to come into Congress and to say, oh, we're so sorry and we're going to change our rules. But number one, we don't have any kind of penalties that have teeth. And they're private corporations. The thing that'll make them comply is if there can be a massive fine leveled against them by the FCC. So number one, I'm advocating that. Number two, the European Union actually has some new rules that they're promulgating around privacy for data for users. The United States couldn't adopt all of those because of our First Amendment concerns, but we could use the European Union's data privacy regulations as a template for instituting regulations in this country to make sure that something like this never happens again in our elections.
I think it's incredibly hypocritical and paternalistic for America to try to spread democracy abroad when we don't have democracy at home. We have an oligarchy. We have an oligarchy. That's what's happening. And so I do want to talk about money in politics. We actually are living in a time where our elections are being bought and sold, and we are saying that other countries are wrong for doing that, and we're doing it right here. We can't have an open and free democracy without net neutrality, so I'm all for fighting net neutrality, but I find it hard to believe that you can fight for net neutrality when you're taking money from AT&T, Century, Verizon, Raytheon. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. So I would propose that we actually fight money in politics in this country. Let's bring democracy to the United States, and then we can worry about the rest of the world. Representative DeGette, $5.2 million you've taken from corporate PACs. From Pharma, $1.5 million. It's hard to believe that you're not affected by those votes. I'm just curious, why would companies give money to candidates if not to affect their votes? It doesn't make any sense.
First of all, I think that we have to have public financing of elections. I've said that from day one. And when the Democrats take the House, we are going to pass Representative Sarbanes' Government by the People Act, which I'm an original co-sponsor, which has public funding for elections. But until then, I have to comply with the same rules everybody else does. I don't have the ability to self-fund my campaign. I don't have wealthy friends to fund my whole campaign. Now, having said that, I will put my votes to anybody's test. I've taken money from PACs, from pharmaceutical companies, and at the same time, I have advocated for negotiation for drug prices under Medicare Part D. I have advocated for full transparency to pharmaceutical drug pricing.
Thank you.
And on and on. I can go on.
Do you have any last comments on this question?
If the insinuation is that I'm self-funding, please look at my FEC report.
No, I'm not.
I'm a first-generation American. My family bench doesn't run deep. This is it. This is the family right here. And so I have done exactly what I've done my whole life, which is be scrappy as hell. I have called everybody I've ever known in my life for money, and there are people from Wall Street, and there are people from Richmond, Virginia, and there are people from Philadelphia, and I am proud of that. There are tons of people from Colorado. These are not rich friends.
Thank you. Okay, and that concludes foreign policy.
So to speak.
We're now going to move into party politics. There are only 2 questions in this section. So it'll be a much shorter section. So same timeline, 2-minute answers, 30-second rebuttal. And we are starting with Saira this time. Okay, this is a 2-part question. If you win or lose in this primary, what will you be doing this fall to help Democrats win locally and nationally?
If I win or lose this fall, it'll be the same thing. Busting my butt like I've always done. All I've ever done is busted my butt for Democrats. Canvassing, phone banking, working up and down the ballot across the state. I am all in.
Diana?
What I'll be doing through this summer and fall is making sure that we win the 23 seats that we need to win to take back the U.S. House of Representatives. What that will mean, we'll be working right here in Colorado to make sure that we take the 6th Congressional District. It'll mean keeping the 2nd Congressional District, and I want to tell you, there's a couple of other districts that look like we could really take them too. That'll be my first priority. And then after that, I'm going to be traveling, campaigning for members all around the country, as I have, in order to help them get elected so that we can have a strong Democratic majority in the fall. I'll be helping them raise money. I'll be helping them in town hall meetings and in other kinds of meetings get their message across. But the other thing I'm going to be doing, and all of us should be doing it, is I'm going to make sure we keep a Democrat in the Colorado governor's office. I'm going to be making sure that those other 3 statewide constitutional jobs are Democrats. I just want to give you one thought on that. Attorney General. Think about the Masterpiece Cake Theater. And if we had a Democratic Attorney General. And then we're going to make sure that we take back the state Senate and that we keep the state House. That's what we have to do as Democrats.
I think that it's strange that Mike Hoffman is still here. I'm not sure why he's still here if the Democrats in the state were actually campaigning up and down the ballot and across the state. We would not have Mike Hoffman right now.
Audience, please keep your personal thoughts to yourself throughout this debate. Thank you so much so that we can hear the answers from our candidates. Second question. We'll start with Diana this time. There are still many divisions within our party. Should we work harder to bridge those divides, and how?
You know, this last election was a really rough election for all of us. We had 8 years of Barack Obama as our president, and we thought things were going pretty well. We wanted to take the Congress. We were desperate to take the Congress, but at least he had the veto pen. It's been shock and awe for all of us, and it's been hard for all of us as Democrats to accept that election and to put together a plan to move forward. But I believe that we have, because we're Democrats first. And I know we have divisions, but I have no doubt that we're going to come together at the end, no matter who you're supporting, and we're going to work to make sure that the winner of this primary will be elected to this seat and that we will take the majority. Because overall, we care about working people. We care about the people who come to this Pipefitters Hall every week. We care about people of color in our community and equity. We care about, please, audience, we care about making sure that every child in this community and in this state and in this country goes to bed with a full stomach and a roof over their head. And you know what? That's why we're Democrats, and that's why we're going to fight for the shared ideals that we believe in.
And that's where we're different. We are not Democrats first, we are human beings first. And a whole lot of human beings have felt left out of the party. Brown people, black people, disabled people, poor people, people with accents, people with the wrong accents, people with my accent. So I think a big problem is we have to bring people into the party. We lost black voters, we lost young voters, we lost the Rust Belt, the Obama coalition fell apart. Something is not working. The polling after November 2016 showed this. Folks stayed at home because they felt like people weren't listening. We gotta start listening. And when we say we don't feel included, please listen. It means we don't feel included. We wanna be part of the party, but we wanna be included. Another thing, I think we've gotta get rid of superdelegates. I think that's anti-democratic. And you know, we have situations where, for example, in CD1, when overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders and
62%.
Representative DeGette went superdelegating for Hillary Clinton, it felt anti-democratic.
Yes,
That feels like what causes sort of the divisions. Also, when the DCCC gets involved in primaries and does super shady things, that feels bad. So maybe if the party would let us have open primaries, we have an institution without term limits. The very dictionary definition of democracy is open and robust primaries. How about if the party supported that and then got behind whichever candidate, won the primary?
Right on.